Who is your biggest inspiration?
Musically speaking?
Sure.
Oh wow. Um, Biggest musical inspiration? Well, I'll answer that in a couple different ways. I mean, I have people who inspire me on my primary instrument, which is drums. So there's some drummers who really inspire me. Like, there's a jazz drummer named Elvin Jones, who was particularly famous in the 60s. And still, when I listen to recordings of him, he inspires me both with what he does on the instrument from a technical standpoint and then from a musical standpoint, what he does. There's a younger guy who's more current named Brian Blade, a drummer who I also really love. I love this rock drummer named Steve Jordan. These guys are hugely inspirational to me. I study them all the time, play along with them on recordings and transcribe them. I mean, musically speaking, well, someone who had a huge bearing on my life was a guy named Maynard Ferguson, who I actually got to work with. It was a dream come true for me to play drums for him. When I was growing up, what got me interested in jazz music was a Maynard Ferguson record that I heard. And getting then to know him and spend time around him, and he really, I think, helped mentor me in becoming a professional musician and carrying on the torch of what jazz music in particular is, what it means both to the United States and to art in general. So I think, those guys, huge inspirations musically to me.
What do you value most that your career provides?
What do I value most that my career provides?
Yeah.
Well, I definitely think that no matter what my career would be, I am very thankful that I can provide for my family. We don't have the biggest house in the world, and we don't have the nicest cars in the world, but we have, I think, things that are adequate, and we don't, have to be nervous about paying our mortgage or making ends meet every month. So I think what means a lot to me is that I can provide for my family with my career choice. And what also I enjoy about it is that I make enough from what I do that I can continue to pursue music without being stressed out about finances, thereby being free to dwell on more artistic things rather than financial things.
Where do you see the music industry going? How has it changed since you came to UNT as a freshman, and how will it change in say 10 years?
Well, it has changed drastically. I started here in North Texas in 1998, and there was no iTunes, there was no iPod. The CD was the primary source of music, and tapes were still kind of floating around. I was bringing cassette tapes around to get copies of music from professors to practice and stuff. The digital era changed everything in the music world. It changed things in that the value of music has nearly been destroyed, and what I mean by its value is its monetary value. All of a sudden, an album that an artist would spend $30,000 creating and then could profit $15 per disc went to nothing because people were trading it for free. And then maybe the worst thing happened was music became so easily shared that people didn't even realize it was illegal, or at the very least unethical. They didn't know they were stealing. And it's actually still the problem, is that the average musical layperson, when they hear something they like, they download an album on iTunes and they really like it, they'll just forward it to their friend.
They don't realize that the people who made it, it's their job.
They do
That's
not.
why they get money.
They do not realize it. No one would ever consider, although they would like to do so, no one would ever consider walking into a restaurant, ordering $100 steak dinner, sitting down, eating it, and then leaving without paying. That's illegal. We would arrest that person. People do not do that. When we go to restaurants, there's not a security guard at the front. Have you, check it, did you pay your tab? Because culturally, we understand that you enter into an establishment, you order a meal, you eat that meal, then you pay for that meal. Very rarely do you even pay first at nice restaurants. But with music, people don't understand the correlation to the amount of time, the amount of study, the amount of work that goes into a musician being competent enough just to create this music, much less all the expenses surrounding creating that music, packaging that music, marketing that music, putting that music in some sort of tangible form so that it may be consumed by people, but they do that. People take it. Oh, thanks. They don't understand that it's illegal. I've had people to my face, musicians, come up to me and say, hey, I heard your new album. I downloaded it on iTunes and I really liked it. And I would say, wow, that's great. And they said, yeah, I liked it so much I sent it to my friend. I thought he would like it too. I was like, what do you mean you sent it to your friend? I just emailed him the files. And I was like, well, you stole it. Like, what do you mean? I was like, well, you bought it once. You're giving it to someone else to enjoy. And that's the problem with the digital era, and that's the biggest change. I mean, we're watching record labels go out of business, and we're seeing artists try to understand how they can compete with that. How can you find a way to protect your music? Because the other problem is once we've put that music in digital format, and it starts crossing national and international borders, who is legally able to pursue that? I mean, this all came up with Napster in the late 90s, early 2000s, but it's still bad. And I was even commenting to my wife this morning about people they take music for granted. They expect it to be perfect. They expect it to be excellent. And they expect it to be free. Why do we expect that? I like tennis shoes for when I go running. I like them to make my feet feel good. I like them to look decent. And I like them to last a long time. Thereby, I expect to spend anywhere from $50 to $100 for them. I don't expect Nike to give them to me. And why am I willing to pay that money? Well, I know that Nike has done hours and hours of research on how to design the perfect shoe, how does it make it look good to make it last. They're a company of repute, thereby I know it will last. We don't expect that for free. And maybe the other biggest problem, this is a reoccurring problem probably for the last 100 years in music, but even if money is generated by music, the artist doesn't get it, or gets a very small percentage. There are people who sit around all day long thinking of ways to profit off art, to profit off music, which they didn't create, to profit off of it, and then give as little of it as possible to the person who actually created the music. It's shocking. I can't think of any other thing that mirrors that except perhaps superstar athlete agents. They're doing maybe the same thing. They're negotiating on behalf of an athlete who is the star and taking a huge cut of what they get. But in music, it's way worse. The musician doesn't really have an advocate. We just have people trying to screw us all over the place. And if someone screws you, there's just someone else who's going to complain about it because they wish they would have screwed you first or screwed you harder or screwed you differently. It's crazy. So to follow the second part of your question, like where do we see music going? I don't know. I think it's in a scary and dangerous place right now because how long until musicians and artists can't bear the burden of being unable to pay their bills? You know, I said that statement to you in the last question. One of the things I value the most about my career is that I'm able to provide for my family and myself enough that I can still have my creative conscience free enough to work on art. There's going to reach a point where musicians won't be able to do that. They're just going to say, what's the point of doing this? And then, will music disappear? Maybe. Will the quality of it, and quality being especially the unique creativeness of it, evaporate? Absolutely. Absolutely. So I don't have the answer as far as where music's going, but I definitely am worried about where it's going. And I think my stance on it as an artist has been the only recourse I have that I can think of is to, as best as possible, try to make music that I think is excellent and creative that I believe in. And then pray that legally something changes so that it's protected and so that what we work so hard to create can actually be a financial benefit to us. Not because we create it to have financial benefit, but because we want the financial benefit of our hard work so that we can provide for ourselves, meet the means of our life, and continue to create better.
So with like the emergence of like iTunes, SoundCloud, or Napster, do you think music has become more of a business, more political?
Yeah, definitely, but I don't think it's just with that. I mean, I think if we go back to the 40s and 50s where recorded music, printing of records, I mean, this goes back even further, maybe to the 20s and 30s where we had the first tangible representation of recorded music, and thereby the buying and selling of a tangible piece of it. That's probably where it started. There's all kinds of different things documenting this. I mean, even that there was the movie about Ray Charles featuring Jamie Foxx, and there's some major kind of Hollywooded up issues in there about him owning his music. It's been a reoccurring problem of musicians who are creating the music not profiting from it, though they're doing all the work. But it has definitely, I think, escalated with Napster started it, but iTunes still has kind of pushed the boundaries. We're having problems with YouTube. They're trying to rein it in, but there's all these people who are just going to post a song on YouTube that's not theirs by some famous band. They're going to opt in for monetizing, which is every time you watch a YouTube video, there's a commercial. Every time you watch even 5 seconds of that, which is sometimes it won't let you skip it until 5 seconds, they're making money off that person in the video. So what if you post one of my songs off my album and it gets 1 million hits, and you sell advertising on it and you generated, let's say, $100,000 from it? What did I benefit from? Nothing. You're profiting off of someone else's music. And they're trying to control that, but it's been going on a lot. And because of the digital format, and because, as we talked about earlier, people sometimes don't understand the value of music. We don't see it as being worth as much money. It's kind of disturbing. It's a problem. I'm going to misquote it, but there's a country artist named Vince Gill a couple years ago who has this quote. He said something to the effect that he spends thousands and thousands of dollars to create a song, and now it's the same price as an app for your phone that makes fart noises. You know, for 99 cents, you get a fart app, or you get a piece of music that has years, if you total up the years and years of musical experience and talent and study and work of all musicians involved, it's worth 99 cents to fart samples. But it's a reality. So that kind of shows us what do we value music as? Clearly as much as a fart, which is scary. Yeah, we have thousands of students at this institution studying music because we believe in its value. We believe in its merit. So I hope we can somehow resolve this. I don't have the answer, but I hope we can continue to discuss it. But it's a worldwide discussion. If we can't, not to get political, but if we can't, in a world, we can't discuss things like poverty and starvation, how are we going to ever discuss music rights?
What risk did you take to get where you are today?
Well, a lot of financial risks.
Yeah. As with most musicians.
Yeah,
they take risks.
absolutely. Quite honestly, I would be driving a lot nicer car had I never spent a dime on my own albums. I have not seen a dollar for dollar profit on the 5 albums I've done. Now, my career has benefited from it in a lot of peripheral ways, but purely my music and the amount of money I spent on it, I don't see a dollar for dollar correlation. But myself and my wife, who I list as executive producer on my albums because it's her income, her money too, that we spend on this art, we understand a couple things, and we believe a couple things. I believe in my music. I believe in the purpose behind me doing it, and I believe in the goals I have with it. And I also believe that if I stay the course and keep creating music that I believe in, that is as excellent as I'm possible of creating and putting it out there, I believe good things will happen. I do believe there will come a day where it will become profitable. And I believe it will become hugely profitable for me, to be quite honest. I mean, I think that's the entrepreneurial spirit. You believe in a creation, you believe in a product you're creating, and you believe that people want it, you believe it has a value to them, and you believe that a lot of people will want it. And so I believe that, but yeah, it's definitely it's taken some financial sacrifices to do so. And just also the time I put into creating this music, compositional, I mean, I would say, I don't know, as an estimate, I'm a slow composer, but every song I write, I spend minimum 8 hours on it. Minimum. There's some songs I've spent hours and hours on. That's my fault, creatively, because I know what I want, but every hour I spend on that, every redo of a tweak of it, or all this, when I can't sleep because the songs bother me and I want to work on it, those are sacrifices for the art. I mean, yeah, I'd love to. I don't watch much TV because I have everything against TV, but I've got too much work to do. I have too much to work on, and I have to balance that out too with not only composing but practicing my primary instrument. I still work very hard on it. I schedule them in my day. There are some times where I'd rather sit on the couch with my wife for an extra hour and hang out. But I sit with my wife for a while, and then I go to my little practice room, and I spend 2 hours by myself in a room with drums, trying to be better. Not because someone's making me do it, not because I'm getting paid to do it, because I know that's what it's going to take for me to become more excellent and to generate more excellent music. So a lot of sacrifice. But there's a quote that my father used to tell me growing up that I tell all my students, and it means a lot to me too. It's attributed to a lot of different people, but the one paraphrase of it is, choose a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And so when you find something like that, which it's different for different people, for me it's music, it doesn't seem like sacrifice. If we go on paper, I mean, I'm sure my accountant would disagree with me. He would say this is a financial, a lot of loss. This is a lot of work. You're wasting your time here. To me, though, it doesn't seem that way. I got an email yesterday. I was having kind of, we all have good and bad days. I was having kind of a lame day. It was the end of a very long day, and I checked my email when I got home, and I had an email from a high school kid in the middle of nowhere, Texas, who wrote me an email to tell me how much he liked my recent album, and was asking me if he could buy the sheet music to one of the songs to play with his friends at a concert. And it's those things, you just need one little pinprick, one shaft of positive light on your art to make you realize it's worthwhile, because it's making a difference. If it makes a difference to one person, here's a person that I never met, I probably never will, who enjoyed something so much that he was willing to go out of his way to track down a way to contact me, and then to write me such a kind email. That makes it all worth it. It makes a sacrifice worth it.
Last question. For someone who would want to be a drummer or producer, would you tell them to follow your own footsteps? And if not, does every person going into this field have a different way about getting to it?
Yeah, I do a lot of producing, and it's a complete accident. The reason I became a producer was, as a drummer, they're usually the first things that are completed on a recording session. So going back all the way to my time as a student here at North Texas, when I was working on the first couple 1 O'Clock band albums I was on, I remember on the first album, I recorded all the drum tracks, and they needed to go through and do some editing